It's like the line in The Godfather where Michael Corleone says, like, you and I are both part of the same hypocrisy. It's like Dallas Carter and Permian, they're both part of the same hypocrisy of like high school football. Like they're both doing the same thing. Like they're both not really educating these kids. They're both like passing kids who are good at football. They're both doing the same shit. It's just that like one of them got punished for it. And so for some reason, it was the black school that got punished. I wonder why that could be, you know? And like, I think that's something that gets glossed over. And even the like treatment, the way they play is viewed as like two totally different styles. When like in reality, they're both high school football teams running weird offenses that's relying on their defenses. I mean, it's true that Dallas Carter had more Division I athletes. Like that is true. So like there's a kernel of truth to this stuff. It's just that the movie takes it and like amplifies it.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, it's like part of the Permian identity is like we are a dirty team, you know. Like we're small and we're scrappy and we will cheat. Like, it's like almost sort of accepted. But like Dallas Carter, when they start trying to like play dirty, it's not that kind of like gritty toughness. It's them gloating and being sort of arrogant. And the other thing is like Permian is the historic powerhouse here. Like
Right.
Dallas Carter was not historically good. They just have this run of like really good players and prospects sort of.
Yeah, and they were the first like city or school from Dallas, the city of Dallas, to make the championship in like how I don't forget the exact number of years, but it was a whole thing about how like there was a debate about whether urban schools could compete with suburban schools or smaller city schools like Odessa and Permian and whatever. And like Dallas was this like underdog story, and then it wasn't. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I don't know, the whole time they're just sort of seen as like brash, and I'm kind
Yeah.
of glad that the movie didn't try to sum up the kind of Dallas Carter
Yeah, that's a fair point.
because like there was no hidden. That's a different movie.
It's a different movie, yeah. There is like, I mean, there like one scene I like a lot in the finale or in the final stretch. The whole like I forget we said this, but the final game takes up like a third of the movie. It's like a really long stretch, which is part of why it's so good. Is it's not just like 3 plays and then the team wins. It's actually like you kind of see how these games unfold. But one of my favorite parts of that stretch is in the halftime scene. Like you get the sort of speeches like from Ivory Christian and then from the coach, but then like they just do a prayer and the movie cuts between like Permian doing it and Dallas Carter doing like the same Our Father shit or whatever. And like, it's one of those reminders of like, yeah, these are all part of the same culture. Like this is the kind of like they're praying in the middle of like kind of these are public schools. Like, like you're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think yeah, like to the extent that they're sort of tied together in this sort of like Texas football culture,
Right.
I think that works. But I do think like yeah,
They're both part of the same hypocrisy. It's like the same kind of, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, they're clearly the villains. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think like I'd be inclined to see it the other way, but
Yeah, no, and I think falling back on this tropes of like good guy team, bad guy team. I mean, I don't know any way around that for a movie like this, but it's a little generic, and I think that's partially why the movie falls into, like as you said in the beginning, like it's seen as part of a group of like football movies that end with like the big game against the bad guys, and it's like it feels like Remember the Titans or Varsity Blues or Rudy or like any number of football movies that kind of follow that same trope. And even though I think it's better than those movies, I think it's still not so different in kind. I think that is an interesting way maybe to sort of lead to like the sort of final like to end this discussion is like, is this movie different in kind? Like, is it like, is this ultimately just a football movie? Is it like, does it capture what makes the book interesting? Like, is it really telling a socioeconomic story? Like or is it watering down a socioeconomic story and turning it into like a story about individuals? And I'm curious, like what you're like recognizing that we both love the movie. Like, what do you think the politics of the movie are? And is there a way around that?
I think politically this movie is very neoliberal, as I've already mentioned. It's very individualistic. It's very like, if you work hard, play the right way, clear your eyes,
Yeah.
play hard till the final whistle, you can kind of do well. And maybe you don't like win the state championship, but you can get pretty close. I think that's the takeaway. But ultimately, I think the lessons of this movie, or not even the lessons, but I think the tone of this movie is very romantic and nostalgic. in a way that the book is certainly not. I think Bissinger has, and he's said in interviews and said since, that he has like a sympathy and an affinity for Odessa, but like the whole time he's sort of like contemptuous of Odessa and sort of thinks it's disgusting, which it seems like it is. And he kind of thinks that like this place is very much like blighted and systemically toxic in a myriad of different ways, both economically, like socially, environment in which it exists. Both in like the 1980s historically and just like in this part of America. Whereas like in this movie, that the final scene is like you get the music and, as like they're kind of prepping for next year, and you get the final scene in the parking lot where Winchell, Chavez, and Billingsley are all like saying goodbye to each other and talking about like what they're gonna miss. I'm gonna miss the lights. I'm gonna miss the action.
I'm gonna miss the heat.
I'm gonna miss the lights.
Yeah. Me too. Stay low, boys. Keep those feet moving.
Hey, Chavo, be perfect.
You be perfect.
See, Mike.
See you, Don. See you, Chavo.
It's sort of like celebrating this like moment in the sun for these people. Whereas like in the book, it is like explicitly different. There's a quote from Winchell like after the game where he's like talking to a local beat reporter, and he's saying like, you make some bonds for life. The real sad thing is we'll probably go our own separate ways. In the book has the same ending where it's like Gaines taking off the nameplates and replacing them, but it has the exact opposite implication. Like in the book, the message is like, yeah, long term, none of this shit matters. Like none of these individuals have any sort of power or like resonance or lasting legacy. Whereas in the movie, it's like, we were here in 1988 and we fought for something, and
Yeah. Well, there's like even the last scene you're talking about with them in the parking lot. So like Billingsley and Chavez drive away, and then Winchell takes his football, and there's like these kids playing like nearby, and he goes and he like throws the ball to, he's like, hey kids, like, and he throws them the football, and then like he turns, and it's like while it's like cut with the coach taking the nameplates off and putting the new nameplates of the next year's kids. So it's like there's this very literal like passing of the football, but passing of the torch, where it's like, okay, we're handing it off to the next generation. And then like Winchell smiles, like the whole movie they're talking about how Winchell never smiles. He's like never happy. He's always bummed. And then like when he passes it off to the next generation, he's like happy. And like so part of that is like relief that the pressure is no longer on him. But it's also like passing. He's getting a joy from the passing of the baton. But as you say, in the book, it's sort of this depressing thing of like, no, the system just sort of grinds people up and spits them out. It's not like a pass along of an important thing to your child type thing. It's like okay, you're discarded in the way Booby was discarded, and the way that, Billingsley was just, like the way all these guys kind of who couldn't thrive were basically just tossed to the side. And I think like, I think you're right. Like Bissinger talks about how he has affection for Odessa, and you can kind of see that in the book, but for the most part, you can't. Like for the most part, you get the sense this place sucks, and like you would never want to live there. But the movie does have this romantic feeling of like, isn't small town life great? Like, isn't this how you like? Isn't even when it's hard, you triumph over alcoholism, depression, like all these things, get down, and in the end you love it. Like I'll miss the lights, like all that stuff. And it's like, I think that's sort of just, again, a Hollywood narrative. Like you can't really be as nuanced about like, and you don't really want to end a movie that costs like $30 million with like, life sucks. But I think there's a lack of complexity. I think what's tricky is like the movie is super sad. Like I was saying this to James before we started recording, but like we see like, I think about 4 games in the movie, and the team loses 3 of them. Like 3 of the games you see in detail are games that the Panthers lose. And so it's like, man, it's just like, it is not a like uplifting movie. You don't come away from this thinking like, I mean, even though it sort of has this sort of hopeful center, it is a dark movie. Like there is, and I think that is a good thing that it like captures about the book. That even though it is, as you say, neoliberal and romantic, it does capture some of the darkness in the book, just in its tone, where it's like, yeah, this is still pretty bleak though. Like Booby still is injured. Like he, like these kids do really still like have a bleak future ahead of them. They still lose the big game at the end. I think that aspect of it, which we'll talk more about in the next episode, gets a little lost in the legacy of Friday Night Lights and the show especially.